Welcome to the first episode of To KSM and Above, the series where I will be documenting my journey to achieve KSM and then to see how far I can get afterwards. Hopefully I will be able to time a plus 20 of every dungeon to get my portals. Let's get into the first dungeon. The first dungeon in today's video is Halls of Infusion plus 11. I won't be showing the entire run. I will instead be cutting the dungeons into highlights to avoid the video being 3 hours long. The trash mobs before first boss is fairly simple to deal with, as long as you make sure you're interrupting expulge from the containment apparatus. Otherwise, they will deal a lot of damage to the entire group.
Interrupt.
Watcher Iridius is the first boss in the dungeon, and he has a few abilities you need to know about.
Shockwave.
He has a frontal cone aimed at the tank called
AOE
Titanic
incoming.
Fist. Tanks aim it away from the rest of the group, but you can sidestep it yourself as well. Watcher Iridius also put a dot on 3 random players.
Shockwave.
And when that dot is either dispelled or
Watch your
expires,
step. Watch your
it
feet.
leaves a puddle on the ground. Move those puddles away from the group
AOE incoming.
and the middle of the room. Sometimes Watcher Iridius will run to the middle of the room, shield himself, and then you need to break the shield by defeating the nullification devices on top of him. Our next boss is the Gulping Goliath, which has 2 important abilities.
AOE incoming.
The first of which
Watch your
is
step.
Overpowering Croak, which deals damage to the entire group and spawns
Run.
swaglets that fixate random players. And the other one is Gulp, which creates a circle around the boss. And every player and or swaglets caught in the circle gets eaten. It's a great way of controlling the amount of swaglets,
AOE incoming.
and it's also very
Watch your
important
step.
that one player gets eaten, typically the tank, to avoid the boss getting a buff called Hangry, which increases the damage it deals.
Run.
After the Gulping Goliath, we come down to some of the most dangerous trash mobs in the entire dungeon. These Protodrakes. They have a frontal aimed at the tank,
Breath incoming.
and the tank needs to aim it away from the rest of the group and use it as defensive because it hurt. The third boss of the dungeon, I've forgotten the name, has two main abilities you need to pay attention to. The first one is Hailstorm, and as soon as the boss starts casting that
Find
ability,
shelter.
you need to hide behind one of the ice blocks scattered around the room. It is important, though, that it's a fresh one
Watch your
and
step.
not a cracked one. The second ability that is important to pay attention to is Glacial Surge. And that is those rings of ice moving out from around
Find
the boss.
shelter.
And it is important that you dodge them, because they hurt, as you can see,
Watch your
because
step.
I, for some reason, didn't dodge them in this run. The final boss of the dungeon, the Primal Tsunami, also has a couple abilities you need to pay attention to. First off, the boss spawns these
Knocking back.
water orb looking things that you need to avoid. Then the boss will also knock the tank back, and the tank needs to get back into melee as soon as possible. Otherwise, the boss will start to hit the nearest DPS instead. At some point, the boss will send the entire group down to the end of one of 3 bridges. And then you have to run back to the boss while dodging more of those water orb looking things and waves. And when you get back to the boss, there will be 4 ads you need to interrupt and defeat before the boss reappears. The second dungeon of today's video is a +11 freehold.
Watch your
I
step.
like to start out by pulling the first 3 packs together. They can do a lot of damage, especially in
step.
fortified, so tanks definitely need to use some defensives here.
Watch your step.
This next group I like to pull
Watch your step.
towards the pillar, so the entire group can line of sight behind the pillar
Watch
to
your
make
step.
grouping up the
Watch your
mobs
feet.
easier, because otherwise it can be annoying because they're casters and therefore really don't like moving.
Watch your step. Move.
The first boss of the dungeon is a pretty simple one. You mostly just have to pay attention to the parrot, both while the
Charging.
boss is riding on it and after he
Phase
jumps
2.
off. So you can move out of the way to avoid the charge, because that's the majority of the damage in
Step.
this fight.
Run.
The second boss
Danger,
of the dungeon
danger.
is a 2-target encounter. and both bosses have some important abilities to pay attention to. Occasionally, Eudora
Change
will jump
target.
to an area of the arena and start casting Grape Shot. It's important
Run.
to avoid this, and that is most easily done by moving behind Eudora.
Danger, danger.
The other one, Raoul or something, I think he's called, will occasionally smash the ground around him, knocking away anyone
Run.
that's inside the circle. He will also occasionally throw a barrel at a random DPS player. It's important to break them out as soon as
Change
possible,
target. Danger,
or at
danger.
least before the next Grape Shot cast.
Run.
I'm pretty sure paladins can immediately remove it with Blessing of Freedom. Just a quick little tip for all of you paladins out there.
Run. Danger, danger.
The third boss is a little annoying because there's a lot of RP before you can start the encounter. And therefore it's important that someone starts the RP as soon as you get over there by talking to the man in the middle of the arena. And while waiting on the RP to finish, you definitely want to pull extra trash to not waste the time. Ideally, you would want to leave the area at around 82 to 86%. When the first bit of RP is done, a pick will be released that the group will need to catch 3 times before some more RP starts. After that bit of RP is finished, there will be a Tortolan you need to defeat. That's pretty simple. There's just some turtle shells flying around the arena that you need to avoid. After the Tortolan has been defeated, there is some more RP before you can start the encounter with the actual boss. And this boss is all about sharks. He will throw a shark at a random player, and you need to kite the shark into the red piles of meat, so the shark eats those instead of you, because they hurt. And you also need to not stand between the shark and the boss, because the boss will at some point charge to the shark, dealing damage to anyone in the path. The last ability is Shark Tornado, which deals damage to anyone inside the circle. The final boss of the dungeon also has a couple important abilities to pay attention to. The first of which being Swiftwind Saber, which spawns these tornado-looking things around the boss, and Then they fly out in a straight line, knocking
Watch
up
wave.
any players caught in the path. The next ability is Cannon Barrage, which targets a random DPS player or the healer and spawns orange swirlies that you need to dodge,
Watch wave.
including the fire puddles that they leave. The final
Phase 2.
important ability is an ad that will spawn at some point that you need to CC so it doesn't run into the
wave.
group and blows up. That deals a lot of damage. You want it to blow up over to the side. I typically drop down a ring of peace to keep it in the corner.
Watch wave.
That was it for this episode. I didn't have time to show all the keys I did, otherwise the video would have been 3 hours long. But I managed to time almost everything on Ant 11. Hope you enjoyed the video, and remember to like and subscribe, and then I'll see you real soon.